What's up, everybody? I know it's been a while, but February's kind of been a bag of crap month. Now, I say that as if I had a whole bunch of excuses for why I couldn't work on the show, or why I couldn't provide content, or why I couldn't do this. And the fact of the matter is none of that's probably true. It's the fact. The fact is, I just kind of lost momentum. Now, the significance of that is kind of big since I kind of built this whole project on momentum, right? Which was just start something and that leads to another thing and that leads to another thing. Well, as important as momentum is to get things going, I think it's equally as important to recognize when things kind of stop and how we lose momentum and how hard it is to get back going again. And there's several examples this month of that. I was going to take February as one of those dead months where I could kind of take all the time that I had in a day, which is a lot of time in a day. When it's 2 degrees outside, there's nothing to do, right? So how would you spend that time? You would spend that time with catching up on things you neglect. Physically, those things are mobility, hydration, um, maybe a little more strength training and a little less crossfitting, so to speak. Uh, maybe it's that closet you were going to clean out and you just can't get time because it's warm out and there's all kinds of outdoor activities, but since it's 4 degrees now we can get that done, but we still don't choose to do it. We just kind of the momentum sinks. And what I realized about myself, it's not that I didn't already know this, but it's something that's come to the forefront this last month, is I don't thrive unless I have a certain amount of things accomplished by a certain amount of time in the day. Meaning my day needs to start a certain way for it to end a certain way. And if it doesn't, all of my momentum is lost. Meaning the big example is if I don't work out before lunch, I'm probably not going to work out that day. Now, why? Well, it's not from lack of motivation. It's not for lack of discipline. It's lack of momentum. How my day is unfolding is not unfolding the way that I want it to go. So I personally just cut it out. So if I haven't gotten into it by a certain time, I'm probably not going to get to it by a certain time. So I'll convince myself that it's not that big a deal. I'll make it up tomorrow. Same with mobility. Man, this is a great time of year just to feel real comfortable about yourself, right? Sweatpants feel good. The warm house feels good. It's real cold outside. Real easy to go to bed at 8:30. Uh, Watch a mindless TV show and drift off to sleep by 9:15, and then you're up. Or because there's absolutely nothing going on, what a great time to catch up on some yoga, some stretching, maybe some tissue work. But instead, I chose to spend the time not doing those things. And the next day rolls around and same thing. That momentum carries over from the day from the day before into the next day. And that carries on into the next day. And so the way to break that cycle is you just have to stop the negative momentum, be still for a second, and then pick up again on the positive momentum. Case in point, this morning, I was able to get up, do my normal routine, have a cold plunge, which, say what you want about that. Is it just unproductive, busy work? Sure, maybe. But it is a staple in how my day starts. And it is a momentum builder for how the rest of my day goes. So I was able to do that. I was able to have a normal morning with the kids, make them breakfast, do the things. And then it came to the workout part of it, which I kind of been not doing for the last 3 or 4 or 5 days. Now I have been sick. I'm not, it's an excuse. I understand. But what a momentum killer influenza A is. Not that I was tested, but I just assume the whole world's got influenza A right now. I just assume I had it too. I actually had to call in sick to work, which is something I never do um, if I'm actually sick, right? Um, but what a momentum killer that is for your workouts, for anything that makes you feel good, for your walks, for anything that makes you feel good outside of um, your daily routine, and how easy it was for me to just roll 2 or 3 bad days together instead of saying, listen, I need to break this cycle. So the point of this opening monologue is that momentum works 2 ways. It either works against you and it's always pushing against you and it's always trying to run you over, or you're always rolling downhill and things are real easy. So it's either like you're pushing uphill and against gravity or you're going downhill with gravity. Um, and how you experience that is your choice. So the easiest thing for me to do in that whole down funk was just to start somewhere. So just pick a chore. And then that chore led to another chore. And then that chore led to another chore. And pretty soon I was starting to string wins together where it was like, oh, my house is starting to look, better again. Or, oh, I'm starting to feel a little healthier again. So today was not a great workout, but it was a workout. So I built momentum. My cold plunge was not super cold, but it was a cold plunge. And, you know, which is a win. I was just starting to stack up wins until I finally got to the point where I was like, this is how a guy is supposed to feel most days. Accomplished. We're supposed to work hard. We're supposed to check things off the list, and we're supposed to build momentum throughout the day. And when you go to bed at night, you feel good about all the things you've accomplished. I haven't had that in this entire month. Small wins here, small wins there, but I feel like it's been a real struggle to just kind of string wins together. Um, this whole month, and all of it is my fault. None of it is any sort of outside interference. It's me letting me get away with things that I typically wouldn't get away with because my momentum is built from the minute that I wake up in the morning to the time I go to bed. And if there's any interruption, if there's any slowing down, how semis, they're trucking right along at 90 miles an hour in the state, and then they hit a hill, and all of a sudden they feel like they're struggling to get up it. That's a lot of days in February, my momentum. Now, could some of it be seasonal affective disorder? Maybe. Uh, Lack of sunshine and vitamin D, sure. But some of it is also just basic will. And the fact that we need to sometimes just will ourselves into better outcomes. I'm happy that February is almost over. I'd almost always look forward to the month of February as a way to reset. I don't ever use February for what it's designed to do in my life, which is to allow me to build better habits and then maintain those better habits throughout the summer. Because pretty soon the warm weather is going to hit, and all of a sudden it'll be back to balls to the wall. You're waking up in the morning, you're getting your workouts in, you're hitting your protein goal for the morning, and then all of a sudden the day just takes on its own shape and its own life, and you are feeded off the energy that those days provide, the sunshine, the accomplishments, the wins, and then you go to bed and you're like, man, I'm fired up for tomorrow and see how much I can get done tomorrow. February to me is the exact opposite. Now, what February also brings is a new season to CrossFit, and I want to use the rest of this time on a topic that I feel called to talk about today, which is how we spend our time on things and on um, things that we're good at, meaning how we get good at what we're good at and how much time we spend on things that we're not good at, and what does that return on investment look like. And I'm going to use this in real life example, and I'm going to use this in work examples too, because I think there's a lot of times in public safety where our bosses try to make up shit for us to do just for the sake of doing it. Uh, but kind of losing track of what we actually do. Like, what is our bread and butter? What is our, and I'll use my West Des Moines days as an example. We used to sit at softball tournaments every Sunday, Saturday and Sunday. We would take an ambulance and we would have a trailer and we would sit in the blazing goddamn heat in on Saturdays and Sundays at these softball tournaments. And it was purely for no reason other than optics, right? Now, admin's justification is there's a large population of people in a small area. So if there is an emergency, we are right there. And I would come back and say, okay, sure, I'll buy you that. But the majority of the population of taxpayers are outside of this complex right now. And the majority of emergencies that we would respond to would require us to pack up, lock down this trailer, this first aid trailer, walk several hundred yards to the ambulance, get in the ambulance, navigate the park traffic to get out of the park, and then respond to the emergency somewhere within city limits. Okay? Anecdotally, it seemed we went to a lot more of those responses than we ever did for a medical emergency inside that park during a softball tournament. So to me, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. But to administration, it was somebody had a good idea and they got validated by that good idea by having a crew sit there. Now, and maybe it was for optics. Maybe we're showing taxpayers, hey, listen, we're trying to justify our existence. Look at us. Here's a couple EMS providers sitting here at this trailer, on duty, making money, here serving you, and we're in the public eye, and you can see us. The optics are really good. Here we are, which is fine. But isn't what we do well? Isn't what we do in our wheelhouse is responding to emergencies, right? Because we're first responders. That's in our wheelhouse. Not sitting around in the public eye pretending to look busy while we're waiting for said emergencies, right? Like, I always felt like administrations tried to justify our existence by showing the public that, look, here we are, look at us, we're up during the day and we're washing and waxing ambulances, and by God, here's a good use of your tax dollars. But I was never paid for what I did. I was always paid for what I'm capable of doing, right? And so I was just as capable of responding to an emergency inside Raccoon River Park from Station 17 as I was any other part of the city. So why was Saturday and Sunday special that we had to go sit there outside of our station, outside of the comfort of our own, nutrition and our own workout space and our own areas to be productive or not productive on the weekend, and had to sit in a hot ass trailer because it looked cool. Now, how does this relate to anything else? Well, let's take CrossFit, for example. When I first started CrossFit, I had a lot of weaknesses. And in order to compete in a CrossFit workout as prescribed, you had to accomplish these certain things in a certain way. Otherwise, anything outside of that was considered scaled. So point of this is that and I'm going to use double unders as the example. And so at the time, I could not jump rope forward at all. Like, I could not do a forward rotation with a jump rope and jump over it athletically at all. Now, I could skip rope backward like Rocky Balboa. It was just how my brain worked. And so I was trying to learn myself double unders. Double unders is 2 rope rotations for every jump. And I was trying to complete those backwards because that's what I could do. So if CrossFit wrote a workout that said you need to do, and I'll use Annie as an example. Annie's a workout where it's 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, double unders and sit-ups for time. In order to complete at RX, you had to complete 50 double unders, then 50 sit-ups, 40 double unders, then 40 sit-ups, 30 double unders, and you see what I'm saying, all the way down to 10. Well, I wasn't real good at double unders backwards. So I always had to scale it. So 1 rep scaled always loses to the person who completes 1 rep RX, right? And so a big hole in my game at the time was double unders. And by CrossFit standards, you only got credit for a double under if the rope rotation was forward. Okay. So now I had to learn if I wanted to spend the time and the energy to shore up this giant hole in my game, meaning that of all the CrossFit movements, double under showed up enough in workouts that I felt I had to dedicate a lot of time and attention to this weakness. And that would exponentially increase the amount of workouts that I could participate in at the prescribed level. Okay. So to me, it was worth spending the time and the energy trying to learn this skill. And for months, I would go into the fitness room at Station 19 and just pound out double unders, single double unders for what seemed like hours, 45 minutes of constantly jumping, of constantly whipping myself with aircraft cable as a jump rope, trying to string together 2 rope rotations in 1 jump, and then trying to string another one on top of that one, basically going unbroken and trying not to stop. Okay. It was some of it I lended to my personality of I'm not interested in being a failure at this because I've set a goal to complete, let's say at the time, 10 double unders unbroken. And then that 10 turned to 20 and then at 25. And now we're up into the hundreds. Thankfully is how that story ended. That story ended with me figuring it out and doing double unders until I could finally do double unders. It was worth it to me because as we enter a new CrossFit game season and another new CrossFit Open season, this will be my 10th CrossFit Open as a participant. And there's a handful of movements that show up every CrossFit Open. Meaning, if you spend a lot of time on these few movements, you will be successful on the CrossFit Open. That doesn't mean if you spend a little bit of time on these 5, let's say the 5 are double unders, burpees, pull-ups, rowing, and let's say thrusters. Okay. If you spend time in your practice time and in your workout time on those 5 movements, that will encompass 90% of your CrossFit Open. See where I'm going with this? So we're just going to get good at what we're good at. And those are the basics. Now, can I spend a lot of time on overhead squat? Well, sure. It's cute. Kind of like a muscle up. It's cute. But in the context of competing in the CrossFit Open, it's not useful. Time spent on that particular movement, a lot of time, is not worth the reward you get for all that time you spent trying to learn it. But time spent on these few things reaps exponential benefit because this is what the CrossFit Open is made of. And so the point of this is I think sometimes we spend too much time on shit that doesn't matter for the sake of what? Having some trivial knowledge of something that is not useful. Let's look at EMS and let's look at how this would apply to EMS. If the nuts and bolts of your responses are heart attack, stroke, traumatic injury, and respiratory emergencies, those are the things that those are the things that I need to spend the most of my time on as far as education. Meaning, these are the things I need to work on my downtime. These are the things that your training officers need to spend time in making sure through your weekly and monthly meetings that you're getting content on. And some of those are seasonal, right? RSV season or heat stroke season, heat exhaustion season, hypothermia in the certain cold. Like these things recycle. I just spend a lot of time on hypothermia in July, but come September, October, we ought to start thinking about, how we're going to manage these people, right? Because a lot of our responses have those. Now, If you don't have any venomous snakes in your area, do you need to spend a lot of time training on goddamn venomous snake bites? No. It would be time wasted because you're not going to be good at what your service is good at, meaning you're not spending time where time is spent. Does that make sense? And I feel like sometimes we do that personally too, where we're busy to an unproductive point, meaning I'm spending way too much time on something that has no real return on investment for that time. And we're just busy sometimes for the sake of being busy. We're just working on things for the sake of saying that we're busy doing. I use my warm up sometimes for that. Like I just feel like I aimlessly walk around and I'm like, I feel like I'm doing something because maybe I'm stretching or maybe I'm doing something. But if I do it for 30 minutes and my workout takes 10 minutes, is that time well spent? Did I identify weaknesses in my mobility and spend time on them? Or did I just warm up for the sake of warming up so I could tell somebody I worked out for an hour? And 40 minutes of that was spent, air quotes, stretching, right? So I don't know how else to get this point across, that if you have a weakness in something, you need to decide if it's worth the time spent in getting better and how much better of that weakness will you get by spending time on it, or is your time spent better somewhere else where the return on investment is going to be bigger? And that applies to our hobbies. Is the return on investment for your hobby worth the time that you're putting into it? Or is it just an empty hobby and that you're doing it just for the sake of saying you're doing something? There's really no return on investment of it. And I'll use the real world example I can come up with is golf. Okay. If you play 9 holes, the chances of you using your driver is what? 2 or 3 of those 9 holes, because you're probably going to have 2 par 3s, right? And the rest of them may be par 4s, par 5s, but maybe they're going to be a tight enough dog leg that a driver isn't really working. So let's say you're not real good off the tee. You're not real good with your driver. Is it worth spending hours on the driving range to increase the use of your driver maybe 2 or 3 times around? Or what is the time better spent in and around the putting green, knowing that you're not very good at greens and regulation anyway, so you're probably going to have to pitch or chip. And what you know you're going to do on every hole, regardless of how long that hole is use your putter. So would the time be better spent putting, chipping, and pitching if you have time to spend on your golf game? Or is your time better spent just gripping and ripping a bucket of balls down the fairway with a driver that you're not really good at using, and you're only going to use it maybe 2 or 3, 4 times around anyway, to get what? One drive that goes down the middle? Maybe you can substitute that club for maybe a 2-iron. You're a little better. Maybe you don't go get the distance, but you get the accuracy. And maybe you're you shaving a stroke a hole off just by doing that. But you know you can pick up strokes if you spend time working on your short game, right? Think about that as we go into spring, as we try to build momentum back up this spring by getting stuff done, as we try to decide how we're going to spend our time. Is the return on investment from your time worth what you're doing? And if it's not, maybe we need to redirect how we spend our energy. Let's get real good at what we're good at. Let's put our time and money and our effort in things that we do every day, with the people that we interact with every day, for the people that we serve every day. Let's get real good at those things. And then at the end, maybe we can dust off that driver and rip one down the fairway just for prosperity's sakes. Just to remind ourselves that we can still do it. But they're low percentage things, and we need to figure out how we're going to spend our time. That's all I got for today. Uh, there's some other stuff going on behind the scenes, none of which really matters. Like my intention, you guys can hold me accountable all you want to, and I can come back and say, well, listen, I intended to put out 2 shows by now. Well, the fact is I didn't. So my intentions mean nothing. So there's some things working behind the scenes, trying to get some more people involved to have conversations with, because let's face it, that's way more interesting than listening to me um, talk shit about nothing. But today's message was a good one. It took me a while to kind of come up with it a little bit, but once I got the ball rolling on what I wanted to say, um, it kind of started to take its own shape. So that's where we're at on this deal. I'll put this one out Monday. No real updates. Just keep doing what you're doing. We're all just trying to do our best. Some of us can do better, myself included. And I will certainly hold myself to that account as we move forward into warmer weather. Um, all right, that's it. Work hard, be kind. Talk to you next time. Bye.
Hey guys, thanks again for listening to another episode of the Shift Change Podcast. I need to ask if you would leave a rating. I think that it helps people who are new to the podcast find it quicker. It doesn't do me any good, but it does help other people that are looking for the Shift Change Podcast on Spotify or Apple. It just comes up quicker the more ratings that you give it. I don't whether you give it a 2 or a 5, it doesn't make a difference. It just helps other people. If you need to get a hold of me, contact me via my email, the show email, which is talkshiftchange@gmail.com. Or you can message me on Instagram at talk.shiftchange. Excuse me, at talk.shiftchange on Instagram. As always, thanks for listening. I could not have imagined um, how well this podcast has been received. So, as always, I appreciate it. Work hard, be kind.